Mother of Diddy's child, Dana Tran just exposed his darkest secrets on day 18th trial. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension as the trial took an unexpected turn. Dana Tran, a name that had never before made headlines, entered the room, causing an immediate stir. She wasn't accompanied by bodyguards, nor was she prepared for the onslaught of media attention. No one had anticipated her appearance, least of all Diddy, who sat just feet away, his face frozen in an unreadable mask. Yet what Dana brought with her wasn't just her presence. It was a bombshell revelation that would forever change the course of the trial and her life. Dana's silence had been her shield for so long, quiet, controlled, invisible to the world outside. For months, she had kept her distance from the spotlight, a mother trying to protect her child. But on that fateful day, she was no longer willing to remain a passive figure in a narrative she never agreed to. The truth she carried had been buried under layers of control, manipulation, and fear. Her decision to speak in that courtroom would not only expose the deepest secrets of one of the most powerful men in entertainment, it would shatter the foundation of the power dynamics that had kept her quiet for so long. Her voice broke the silence with raw emotion. "I didn't come here to destroy anyone," she said, "but I refuse to protect someone who never protected me." The words echoed through the room, leaving a profound silence in their wake. Dana was no longer just the mother of Diddy's child. She was a survivor who had finally broken free from a life built on fear and silence. Dana Tran's story began far from the lights of Hollywood, far from the lavish lifestyle of celebrities and moguls. She was not a public figure by choice, nor did she ever seek the spotlight. Born into an ordinary life, Dana grew up in a close-knit community where her family values shaped much of who she was. Raised by hard-working parents who taught her the importance of resilience and independence, Dana's early years were marked by a quiet ambition to build a life that was her own, free from the expectations and pressures that often come with fame. She wasn't drawn to a life in front of the cameras or the glitz and glam of the entertainment industry. Instead, Dana sought stability, a peaceful existence with her loved ones. From a young age, Dana displayed a quiet intelligence and a calm demeanor that helped her navigate the world without drawing too much attention. She was never one to seek validation through external applause or approval. Instead, her drive came from within her desire to carve out a life of meaning and purpose. Dana was an individual who preferred a peaceful and quiet existence. She found fulfillment in the simple moments, quiet walks, time with her family, and a deep love for her child, whom she cherished above all else. But life, as it often does, has a way of throwing unexpected challenges in one's path. Dana's life would soon intersect with a world she had never sought to be a part of, and with it a whirlwind that would change everything she thought she knew about love, power, and control. Her connection to Diddy, a music mogul with a legacy that spanned decades, began unexpectedly. It was a meeting that, for all its intensity, appeared to be the beginning of something simple, nothing more than a chance encounter that led to a friendship. What started as an introduction quickly turned into a whirlwind romance, one that swept Dana off her feet. She found herself in a relationship that seemed to promise the kind of love and protection she had always longed for. At first, Dana was captivated by Diddy's charisma. He was charming, generous, and attentive, qualities that made him irresistible to many. But for Dana, they felt like a kind of rare, unconditional love. For a while, everything seemed perfect. Dana moved into his world, a world of extravagance and luxury, where everything was at her fingertips: opulent homes, expensive gifts, and vacations in some of the world's most exclusive destinations. Diddy made her feel as though she were part of something special, something larger than life. But as Dana would come to realize, there was a darker side to the lifestyle he offered, one that came with strings attached. It wasn't love she had been offered. It was control. As the relationship progressed, Dana began to notice subtle signs that something wasn't quite right. At first, it was small things, comments about her behavior, the way she dressed, the way she interacted with people in his world. Diddy seemed to have a hand in every detail of her life, often dictating who she could see, what she could say, and where she could go. The boundaries, which had initially seemed like a natural part of their relationship, started to feel restrictive, oppressive even. Dana's every move began to be monitored, her freedom of expression stifled. Despite the growing sense of unease, Dana remained in the relationship. She thought, as many women do, that love would conquer all, that time would fix the cracks that began to appear in the foundation of their connection. But what she didn't realize was that love in this case was not about care or affection. It was about control. The more she observed the ways in which Diddy's world worked, the more she felt like an outsider in her own life, a mere pawn in a game she never signed up to play. Diddy's world was one of constant surveillance. Dana began to notice small things, people she didn't know hanging around her calls being dropped, text messages disappearing. At first, she thought it was a coincidence, but over time, the reality became undeniable. She was being watched. Her every conversation was being monitored, and she felt like a stranger in her own home. One of the most chilling moments for Dana came when she discovered that she was not the only woman who had been subjected to this level of control. She wasn't the only one living under the watchful eye of Diddy's team. There were others women who had also been drawn into Diddy's orbit and then silenced just as she had been. The realization hit her hard. The life she thought was hers was actually a carefully curated illusion designed to keep her in line, to keep her quiet. The breaking point came when Dana accidentally overheard a conversation between Diddy and one of his associates. It was a casual conversation, but the content of it sent a chill down her spine. The conversation revealed Diddy's true nature, a side he had worked hard to hide. He was discussing another woman, someone who had threatened to go public with their relationship, and Diddy's response was chilling. "Offer her double if she still talks." He said, "We bury her story in her name." Dana's heart sank. She realized in that moment that she wasn't part of a love story. She was just another person being managed, controlled, and manipulated for the sake of his reputation. From that point on, Dana's life became a series of calculated moves to keep her under control. She was followed, isolated, and restricted in ways she hadn't imagined. She realized that she wasn't free. She was a prisoner. The world she thought she had entered, a world of luxury and privilege, was actually one of manipulation, coercion, and deceit. And it wasn't just her. Dana was part of a much larger system. A system designed to protect Diddy's empire at all costs, including the silencing of anyone who threatened to expose the truth. Dana's life became a constant battle between silence and speaking out. For months, she kept her truth hidden, afraid of the consequences of defying Diddy's power. But as the pressure mounted, she realized that staying silent would only make her complicit in a system she could no longer tolerate. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about her child and the world she wanted to protect him from. When Dana finally made the decision to leave, she didn't just walk away from Diddy. She walked away from a life of fear, control, and manipulation. She took a step toward reclaiming her voice, a voice that had been silenced for far too long. Dana knew that her story, if shared, could change everything. But she also knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges, as Diddy's world was one that did not easily let go of its hold. Dana's departure from Diddy's life marked the beginning of a new chapter 1, where she would no longer be silenced. It wasn't an easy decision, and it wasn't without consequences. But Dana knew it was the right one for her child, and for anyone else who had ever felt silenced by the powers that be. What Dana Tran didn't know at the time was that her courage to speak out would eventually ignite a fire that could not be extinguished, and her name would become synonymous with the fight for truth, justice, and the power of a voice once silenced, but now unstoppable. Dana Tran's rise to fame, though not as the result of personal ambition, became one of the most unexpected and transformative stories in modern celebrity history. In a world where fame is often earned through talent, beauty, or sheer presence, Dana's entry into the public eye was a direct consequence of the power structures that sought to silence her. But as the world would soon learn, her story was not about the glittering allure of Hollywood, but rather the raw reality of survival courage and the need for truth to finally emerge from the shadows. Dana's life, once focused on a quiet existence away from the spotlight, became intertwined with the world of power, privilege, and celebrity in the most unlikely of ways. Her connection with Sean "Diddy" Combs, the entertainment mogul and one of the most influential figures in the music and fashion industries, was not a story of love at first sight or a public romance. Instead, it was the beginning of a deeply complex and controlling relationship that in many ways represented the dark undercurrents of fame in a world driven by manipulation and secrecy. When Dana first met Diddy, she was not drawn to him because of his fame or fortune. She wasn't looking for a path to celebrity. She was a woman, a mother seeking companionship, understanding, and perhaps the hope that she had found someone who truly cared for her and her child. What started as an introduction turned into a whirlwind of courtship, one where Diddy used his powerful charisma to pull her into his world. To her, the initial warmth and affection he showered upon her seemed genuine, even though deep down she sensed that things were not as they appeared. For a while, Dana embraced the world Diddy created for her, a world filled with luxury private jets, private villas, and lavish events. At first, it was an escape from the humdrum of her previous life. But over time, the true nature of the relationship became clearer. What Dana thought was love was actually a well-executed form of control. The more she delved into Diddy's universe, the more isolated she became from the outside world. Her autonomy slowly chipped away under the weight of constant surveillance, psychological manipulation, and a mounting sense of fear. Her life was no longer her own. As Diddy's empire expanded, so did the control he exerted over Dana. Her every move, word, and action were watched by a team of handlers, assistants, and people who, instead of caring for her, were only interested in keeping her within Diddy's grasp. Yet throughout all of this, Dana remained silent. She kept her head down, trying to be the perfect partner, the good mother. The celebrity lifestyle was intoxicating, but it was also suffocating. Dana soon realized that she wasn't just in a relationship. She was part of a system designed to keep her in line, to ensure that her voice remained quiet, and that she never stepped out of the boundaries set by Diddy's team. It wasn't until the birth of her child that Dana began to truly understand the depths of the world she had entered. While she had always known that Diddy's lifestyle came with sacrifices, nothing could have prepared her for the life she was forced to accept after giving birth. Diddy the mogul and media mogul was more concerned with controlling the narrative than with being a present father. Dana was encouraged to stay quiet, to remain hidden from the public eye, and to never speak about the details of her life with Diddy. Despite their shared child, Dana was told that the public had no right to know about their family life, a secret that had to be maintained at all costs. For months, Dana lived under the belief that this secrecy was necessary for her safety, and the safety of her child. She never questioned it. She accepted it as many do when they find themselves in situations of power imbalance. But beneath this quiet existence, Dana began to feel the pressure. It wasn't just the lack of freedom. It was the realization that she was being manipulated into a role she did not choose. She was not the partner of a powerful man. She was a controlled entity within his empire, a woman whose identity had been erased in favor of maintaining an image of perfection and dominance. The tipping point for Dana came when she overheard a phone call that would change everything. The conversation, which was supposed to remain a private, offhanded comment, revealed a chilling reality. Diddy had plans to erase anyone who threatened his power. He spoke openly about silencing women who threatened to expose his secrets, offering them money to stay quiet, or if that didn't work, burying their stories. Dana realized in that moment that she was no longer just a woman in a relationship. She was part of a system designed to protect Diddy's reputation at any cost. The truth was not just inconvenient, it was dangerous. From that moment forward, Dana became acutely aware of the manipulation surrounding her. She was not a partner, not a confidant, but a part of a larger machine that kept everything moving smoothly. Her every move was watched, her thoughts policed, and her actions restricted. Dana's world became one of quiet observation. She began to document everything: the conversations, the incidents, the strange behaviors. She started keeping track of the days when things didn't feel right, the moments when she felt like a prisoner rather than a free woman. But despite everything, Dana remained silent, a mother trying to protect her child in a world where silence was the price of safety. Dana's rise to fame was not about the red carpets, the flashing cameras, or the glittering events. It was about surviving a world that sought to erase her voice. She had no intention of becoming famous, but in the end, she did. Her rise to the public eye was the direct result of a decision to stop being silent, to stop hiding behind the constraints that Diddy's world had placed on her. As Dana's inner turmoil grew, she realized that staying quiet, maintaining the facade of peace, and playing along with the image that Diddy had created was no longer sustainable. The fear she had lived with for so long turned into a quiet, steady determination. She knew she couldn't remain in that world anymore. She couldn't continue living in the shadow of a man who thought that power could control every aspect of her life. She needed to break free, not just for herself, but for her child, who deserved to live in a world where the truth was louder than fear. And so Dana Tran made the decision that would change everything. She left. She walked away from the lavish homes, the expensive gifts, and the life of luxury that Diddy had built for her. She didn't walk away because she hated him. She walked away because she knew that the world she had entered was not one that could offer her peace or security. It was a world that offered only silence, control, and manipulation. By leaving, Dana stepped into the unknown, into a world where she could finally be herself, speak her truth, and most importantly, protect her child from the same system that had sought to silence her for so long. Dana's rise to fame wasn't about power or celebrity. It was about breaking the chains that had bound her for so long. It was about finding her voice, reclaiming her truth, and showing the world that even the most powerful systems can be cracked open by the bravery of a single person willing to stand up and say no. What began as a silent, hidden relationship with one of the world's most famous men transformed into a pivotal moment in history. A moment when Dana Tran refused to remain silent and finally revealed the truth that had been buried beneath layers of secrecy and control. As Dana Tran's testimony continued to unfold in court, the world was forced to confront the darkness that had been lurking behind the polished facade of Diddy's empire. What had begun as a seemingly glamorous relationship soon unraveled into a chilling tale of manipulation, surveillance, and emotional control. The world had always viewed Diddy as a mogul of power, success, and influence, a man who had built an empire through sheer determination. But Dana's story revealed a side of him that few, if any, had ever seen: the quiet, insidious side of control and coercion. The facade of their relationship had been carefully constructed, a narrative that painted them as a picture-perfect family. But behind closed doors, the truth was far darker. Dana had been kept isolated not just from the public eye, but from the real world. Her every movement was monitored, every phone call recorded, and every conversation scrutinized by Diddy's inner circle. The subtle manipulation was so ingrained in her life that she didn't even realize how far-reaching it was until it was almost too late. Dana's life had been controlled to the smallest detail. She was told when and where she could go, who she could speak to, and what she could say. At first, it seemed like the natural way of things. As the girlfriend of a man as famous as Diddy, her privacy was bound to be sacrificed for the sake of his public image, she thought. But soon, it became clear that this was not just about protecting a reputation, it was about complete domination. Diddy's team employed a network of handlers, assistants, and staff to ensure that Dana remained compliant and, more importantly, silent. If she deviated from the plan, the consequences were swift and severe. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of this control was the use of non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, contracts that bound Dana not just legally but emotionally. These documents weren't just about protecting Diddy's reputation. They were about creating a silent system of power that kept Dana in a constant state of fear. The NDAs restricted her ability to speak to anyone, even therapists or family members, about what was happening behind the scenes. They were designed not to protect her, but to protect Diddy from the potential fallout of her silence being broken. The tipping point came when Dana accidentally overheard a conversation between Diddy and one of his associates. The discussion, seemingly casual, revealed Diddy's true attitude toward the women in his life, including Dana. He spoke openly about dealing with women who threatened to expose him, offering them money to keep quiet, and in more extreme cases, burying their stories. It was a moment that left Dana frozen in shock. The man she had thought she was in love with was not the protector he appeared to be, but a man willing to manipulate and control anyone who stood in his way. From that moment, Dana began to see the cracks in the perfect image Diddy had built for himself. The luxury, the fame, and the constant surveillance were all part of a grand illusion meant to make her feel powerless and isolated. Dana started to question her reality, noticing how her personal staff and even her friends were subtly replaced with people who were loyal to Diddy and his world. She became a prisoner within a gilded cage, unsure of whom to trust and terrified of what would happen if she spoke out. But Dana's real awakening came when she discovered a file on Diddy's computer, one that detailed every conversation, every interaction, and every perceived threat to his empire. The file, which included her name, revealed a chilling network of control designed not just to monitor her, but to neutralize anyone who posed a risk to Diddy's carefully constructed image. This was not just a man concerned with privacy. This was a man willing to go to any lengths to ensure that his power remained intact, even at the cost of manipulating and silencing the people closest to him. The truth Dana uncovered was not just personal, it was systemic. It was a dark side of fame that had been concealed behind closed doors for years. The revelations in court would expose not just Diddy's abuse of power, but the lengths to which he had gone to build a life where everyone in his orbit was controlled, manipulated, and silenced. The world saw Diddy as a figure of success and influence, but Dana's testimony would shatter that illusion, exposing the brutal hidden truths that lurked beneath the surface. By the time Dana walked away from Diddy's world, she was no longer just a woman escaping an abusive relationship. She was a symbol of resistance, a beacon for all those who had been silenced, controlled, and manipulated in similar ways. The darkness that Dana revealed wasn't just the story of one woman's suffering. It was the story of countless others who had fallen victim to systems of power and control systems that used silence as a weapon. Dana's courage to speak out was the final blow to a machine that had been operating in the shadows for far too long. It wasn't just Diddy's empire that crumbled, it was the belief that power could control the truth forever. Dana's testimony exposed the hidden truth, and in doing so, she became the voice of the silenced, the one who dared to speak when it was most dangerous. The world was listening now, and the truth had a new power, the power to break the silence. Dana Tran's testimony not only shattered the carefully constructed image of Diddy's empire, but it also ignited a wave of change. Her bravery in the face of fear, her refusal to remain silent despite the immense personal cost, gave a voice to countless others who had been trapped in similar systems of control. The world witnessed not just the fall of a mogul, but the rise of a mother who chose truth over fear. Dana didn't just expose one man's dark secrets. She exposed a culture of manipulation that had been allowed to thrive unchecked for far too long. Her decision to walk away, her choice to speak out, changed everything. As Dana left the courtroom, she wasn't just walking away from Diddy. She was walking away from a system that had tried to silence her and countless others. And as the world began to process her words, it became clear that Dana's story was just the beginning. Now, as you've witnessed Dana's courage, we ask you to take action. Share this story, spread the truth, and stand with those who refuse to be silenced. Let this be a call to arms for all those who are still living in fear. Your voice matters, and it's time the world listens.